Welcome to episode number 6 of the Stories I'll Tell. This is a space where my leader friends and I discuss testimonies and stories that will help you launch, land, and lead well in the kingdom. I'm Felicia Johnson. I'm your host and your discussion facilitator. Today, you'll want to get your notepads and pens ready. Why? Because we're talking about money and what it takes to come back after a serious financial setback. I don't have to be the expert today. I've got my own stories, but I've got someone who has some stories that they're going to share with us. He's a community member. He ministers the gospel around the world. He's a business leader, and he's your neighbor. Would you help me welcome to the set today my lifetime friend and your neighbor, Patrick Irby. Hey, Pat.
Hey, Felicia. I'm waiting on the expert to show up. I'm thinking he'll be here about 10, 15 minutes. We'll be ready.
Well, you're going to be the expert today because you've got stories that have qualified you.
Oh, I've got some stories. In fact, probably the only thing you want to write down is, I can't believe he said that. So, get the ink wet.
Well, that's what we want.
Uh-huh.
We want the truth. We want the real deal right here, right?
Well, that's where the excitement is anyway, isn't it?
That's exactly right. We're meeting people right where they are, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, I want to jump right in if that's okay. Patrick, you own a thriving business in Hattiesburg, this great city, but you didn't start off as a leader or business owner. Would you tell me just a little bit about maybe your upbringing, whether you grew up with a silver spoon in your mouth, or how did that happen?
To talk about how I grew up the middle child in a lower middle class family in Natchez. I was born in Alexandria, but I grew up in Natchez. My parents moved from Alexandria to Natchez when I was about 1. The best I remember or was told, and I was a sheltered youth. I was a dreamer. I grew up in a family of athletes, so I was the sensitive one out of the bunch, and a lot of that still deep rooted in me. But my father was a loan officer for a local bank. And he was until the day he retired,
You mentioned that you were risk averse.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's learned, sometimes it's being sheltered. But just as risk aversion can be learned, so can grit and resiliency. I want to know, did you learn any lessons in childhood about grit and being resilient?
No, because I quit everything. I'm sitting here thinking, it's like, where did that come from? I think I woke up one day and I just was mad.
Mm-hmm.
I was mad at what I was. And I was mad. I don't know. It's not like it just clicks. I think that there's a season, and, we do the best we can to try to remember these things.
Sure.
But I was always a dreamer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, crazy. And I remember there are certain smells to this day. If I smell a sweet olive,
sure,
it takes me back to my childhood.
Absolutely.
And I love that smell, especially in the fall, which I think is when it blooms and it's more fragrant. Apparently there were sweet olive trees all around me, and I didn't know what sweet olive was till a couple of years ago. I just been like, what is that smell? What is it? Because suddenly it's like there's a birth inside of me from my childhood.
Sure.
And it wasn't that I had a great childhood. I mean, it was wonderful. My parents worked really hard. They took care of us. There was no excess. There was no luxury, but there was no need.
Mm-hmm.
And but what I remember about my childhood is, like, if I believed that I could pedal my bike fast enough, then I believed I could take off and fly like the kids in E.T. on my bike. And we had a hill beside my house, and I mean, in the fall, I would remember, and I would get as fast as, I'd pedal it, and I never could leave the ground. But that was my dream. If I remember staring at the moon at night, laying in the front yard, just on the back, just believing, that I could fly there one day. And the little things that every kid dreams about at some time. But when it came time to do the work, I would have a moment. But I guess you just have to. At the time, there was not a lot of encouragement.
Yeah.
All right, let me be honest.
Yeah.
Two beautiful parents.
Sure.
Beautiful parents. And
Sure.
the more I learn about both of them, the more respect I have for each.
Sure.
My father's been gone now about 10 years. We didn't have the best relationship.
Sure.
There was just no relationship. And he did the best he could, but like he was like, son, let me take the profanity out. Oh, heck, son, rub some dirt on it, move on. You know, and, he used to say, your problem is you're too nice. And people that know me now might have a contrary opinion. But and it would make me mad.
Sure.
And so he just didn't understand. You know, I wanted to sit down and talk about my feelings.
Yeah.
And he didn't know how to do that. It's like everything was practical. And I needed that in my life. But as a 7, 8, 9-year-old, I don't know that I wanted it.
Absolutely.
I wanted to be coddled
Sure.
to a point, and I wanted to be understood or whatnot. So God puts people in your lives for a reason. And it's funny because when I left the home and then I started, you know, my college experience and then I began working in the industry that I'm in now, then I partnered with George Taylor, who was like, other than the risk, because my father was risk tolerance also. George's most risk, my father was risk averse. George was the most risk tolerant person I've ever known. In fact, I'm still digging out of some of the things. He's like, we can do this, you know, and I'm like, I don't know. But you learn in all circumstances, if that makes sense. My mother, she loved me like you know, like nobody loves you like your mom.
Absolutely.
You know, and she still does. And we have a great relationship. But when I would go to her with my dreams, she was like, well, son, I just don't want to see you disappointed.
That's it.
Now, hopefully mother won't go on this and see this online because it's going to break her heart that I said this. You know, I failed, you know, and it's like, Mom, you haven't failed anything. So, but that was me coming up.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I started playing guitar. I remember the things I was interested in. I did that for a couple of years, from like 10 to 12, and then I'd stop, and then I think I picked it back up around 14, 15 for about a year, and then I stopped. I didn't pick it back up again until I was out of college.
Look at that. And may I just say this to you? I say this to you all the time, and I hope it's not offensive. It's like I'm watching you come alive again with that guitar in your hand.
Oh, well, the guitar is there's a whole history behind that. And for the record, I'm like a white belt in karate with the guitar. I know just enough to get my hiney kicked, you know. But if I can play 2 notes and play them well, and there's feeling and expression, I don't have to play 20 notes.
Right.
And you know, I'll never be that type of player. So, but it's more just how I speak. In many ways.
What I've learned, you know, about even my own upbringing is not necessarily that things that surround our families were useful, but I think that they were necessary to make us into the person that God wants us to be. I think about what you just shared about with your parents, and I think about my own dad,
right,
who I've always loved everything. I'm yet to meet something that I don't love. And so I'd come home with all of these ideas, and I'd say, Dad, I want to do this. And he'd say, you can do it, but you're not going to quit it once you do it. And I'd say, okay. And to this day, it's hard for me to quit anything.
Yeah.
But then I had this mom who wanted me to do it, but she also wanted to protect me.
Right.
So when she would want to stop me, it was not out of not believing in me. It was she didn't want me to feel disappointment. But I want to ask you this question because you ended up in the fitness and health business in this industry.
We didn't even get that far yet.
How did you end up in the fitness and health industry?
All right. So I was painfully introverted, scared of everything, particularly women, or at that time, girls. I was, in my estimation, a shadow under my older brother and My sister. Sister's 2 years younger. My brother was 3 years older. My brother was blonde-haired, strong-jawed, blue-eyed, just under 6 foot, built, athletic. Everybody adored him. And I'm telling you, adored him. He excelled in basketball, football, baseball. The only thing he didn't excel at was academics. I remember there was some heated discussion in the home when I was growing up about some of his grades. And there was a little bit of pressure that my dad, who was an athlete in his own right, my dad, he played football in the 40s. And I have photographs of him playing when they had those leather helmets.
Wow.
Yeah, right. And so he went to Meridian High School. I know I took a tangent, but it's a wonderful story. He was the MVP the year they won some type of state or national championship. And it's painted on the stadium in Meridian, and I've got the little trophy in my trophy case. I hated sports. Now, for the record, I hated sports. I would rather watch paint dry than watch a sport because I grew up, and every time I walk in the den, and in those days, there's one television in the house. Actually, there's two. There's a color TV in a big wooden console that doesn't work anymore. And then there's a 19-inch black and white TV on top of that. That's the one we watched. But it was always a sports even. And I'm like, I don't want to watch sports. I wanted to watch something else. But, So, and I was an artist, so I would just go off in my room and stuff, and I would draw. And that's ultimately what I went to college to do.
Sure.
But growing up under that, and then hearing, and it's funny because we all say things, and Lord, forgive me for things that have come out of my mouth. I mean, maybe even this morning, I'll just be honest with you. But what I remember hearing is, man, you're not nothing like your brother. And they don't mean to hurt your feelings, but, I wasn't. I wasn't anything like him, and I just didn't know where to put myself.
Yeah.
And so in 82, he was murdered. 17 years old. He was walking to a young lady's house that he had a relationship with, and they were trying to work some things out in their little, teenage relationship. And he just was at the wrong place at the wrong time. There's a whole history behind that, but he was shot dead in the street. Okay? And I was 14. I didn't have a big circle of friends. It was just, and you kind of grieve by yourself in a way. And I didn't know how to grieve because we always fought.
Yeah.
He's, I'm trying to toughen you up. And he's sitting there knocking. Oh, man, he would hit me, and I'd have a lump on my arm, and I'm like, dude, why you got to hit me? I'm not that good, Anyway, and shortly after that, I don't know why, but I began, what my mother tells me is they were really concerned because I would wear his clothes. Now, granted, I'm 82 pounds probably when I was 14. I graduated high school under 100, and he was like 170, 180 pounds. And so I'd put a shirt on and go to school in it and stuff, and it would just like hang off of me. I don't remember this, but it's what I was told. I don't know how long that went on either, but I started exercising. And that turned into a passion because I saw me for the first time as like taking charge of something about me. Like I began to understand that my work could shape my identity.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And ultimately it led to where all I wanted to do was work out. And I went to college really just to get in an environment where I could work out more and do what I knew how to do. So I got my undergrad in art. That was the only thing I was good at. And there was other things I could have done. And now a mature Patrick going back, I'd have changed all of that.
Sure.
But we don't have that luxury. But that's how I got in the industry. So I go to college and I'm like finally a real gym. I'm in a real gym because we didn't have much in my hometown. Yeah. And then ultimately that's how I met who became a business partner, because I started working. I thought that'd be the coolest job in the world to work at the gym. I love the gym, right? And there was something about it. And that's where that started. And but there was something that clicked in me about the pursuit of excellence. And it separated me a lot from the people around me. And I'm not saying that I've always done that in a healthy way.
Sure.
I'm still learning. And I will always be a student. And the dumbest I've ever been was last year, and the only year that'll top that is probably this year. I mean, you go back and you reevaluate, but as long as you're learning, there's growth.
That's it.
And as long as you're willing to stay in the fight for something you believe in, then you'll become an expert. I mean, if there is such a thing. You remember Charles, our pastor, Dwayne's pastor, Charles Simpson?
Yes.
He gave a men's conference. I believe it was at a men's conference. He was part of a conference we had years ago. This is 15 years ago. And I remember him saying, whatever it is your passion is, and I'm paraphrasing the best I remember, he said, your obligation is to become an expert at that. And I remember just sitting there and I'm thinking, whoa, what does that mean?
I love that. And I want to couple it with something else that you said. You talked about your story. You talked about your brother so bravely. I want to say thank you for that.
Well,
It's so, I am always in awe how God doesn't waste anything in our lives.
Nothing.
That your brother would be so athletic, and then you literally, after his passing, become fascinated with working out, athleticism, so to speak.
Well, let's clarify a few things.
Did I get it wrong?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't know if there's a word, maybe displacement. I don't know what that is. I began working out because I didn't like who I was. If that makes sense.
Sure.
To the best, the 14, 15-year-old kid can understand that. I didn't like the fact that I didn't get attention.
Yeah.
I didn't like the fact that I was the last picked on sports teams. I have never been athletic, and there's nothing athletic really about picking a weight up and then putting back down on the ground, to be able to move. Now, my son is athletic, and with little effort actually produces pretty good return. My brother, same way. My sister, she was a competitive tennis player in high school. But, stepping into that, I think there was a couple of things happening. Is that I was filling a hole because, you realize that there's a hole in a family dynamic that will never be filled again.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And, it was the only existence I knew.
Yeah.
That was my home. I'm 14, 15 years old, and all of a sudden there's a piece missing.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to invite you to make a difference all around the world. You can do so by partnering with me. How do you partner? By sowing a weekly, one-time, or monthly gift into our ministry. Your gifts and contributions of love will help me to continue to take the gospel of Jesus Christ and encouraging words into homes everywhere through our podcast, The Stories I'll Tell, and by ministering in person to any place that God sends me to. If God places it on your heart to sow into this ministry, you can do so in a few ways. First, you can write us at P.O. Box 18391, Hattiesburg, Mississippi 39404. Make your checks payable to the International Institute for Personal Development. You can also sow via PayPal. You're just going to type in the @TEC749. Here's my prayer for you as you sow into this ministry. That God would make all grace abound toward you. That you would always have all sufficiency in everything. And that you would be able to give to every good work. God bless you and thank you for partnering with me. You ventured into business ownership, and so many times I get this question, how do you start a business? How do you start a business? And I always say this, don't start a business, solve a problem. So I want to talk about how you became a business owner.
Okay. So I'm in college, all right? I'm in art school. I'm learning how to watercolor and do graphic design and at the time multimedia. This is before computers, right? And so I graduate. I'm working out the whole time, and by this time I've kind of figured out the working out thing. Now let me tell you, that took a place in my heart, in my life that probably it never should have sat in. Because I was a machine by this point. Every meal calculated, every workout calculated. I was a student of it, and I had literally transformed myself. Now I'm a competitive bodybuilder, like doing everything I possibly could to take me to the next level of what, to my mind, was the golden place of just aesthetics. And the only thing I did not do was chemicals. Long story short, I get a job at the health club, and this tenacity that I have learned and this pursuit of excellence that I really love setting myself apart because of my grit. It's like there's people more talented than me everywhere. There's people smarter than me everywhere. But you're going to be hard-pressed to find someone who's willing to stay in the game. That's the only quality. It's the only quality I have. And sometimes you could argue maybe it's not a quality. It's like, boy, didn't know when to quit. And there's sometimes I should have walked away from stuff.
Sure.
But I don't walk away from things. My conversation with God for my life has always been, give me something to walk into. Yeah. Because I'm not gonna run from something. I would rather run to something.
You're making me think of a question that I have. So many times when people are going into a business or they're going into ownership, they think the journey will be straight upward. They think
they wrong. They think they're wrong, Felicia. Nothing. My weight don't do that.
One day I put name something that does,
right,
that has just an upward trajectory. And what they don't understand is the journey is up and down. Yeah. What do you do in your business? What do you do to prepare and to keep going through the lulls? Because we all have lulls.
I don't know that I just don't know how to quit. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna tell you, I have, for the lack of a better word, counseled individuals going into business for themselves, and a couple of them that come to mind had good jobs. Yeah, and I'm like, you need to understand what you're stepping into, because the job you have now, while it might have elements to it that are not ideal. Maybe you have call. Maybe one weekend out of every 3 that you're having to travel. There's no perfect gig.
Come on.
At least I've never found it. But when you go into business for yourself, you're giving up the ability to clock out.
Come on.
And when it's your thing, there's no clocking out. So then the answer lies in, and a book I would recommend is Entre Leadership. Mm-hmm. Have you read it?
I have, actually.
Yeah. So, for the longest time, I built a job that, my name's on. Mm-hmm. And it felt like a job often. Mm-hmm. And my direction over the past 10 years is really to turn this from a job to, I forget how he phrases it, but where I'm a business owner. Mm-hmm. And it's not consuming my life, because I've been in that space. Mm-hmm. And it's not a good place to be.
Yeah.
There's and sometimes you do what you have to do. There are times when you just have to put the hours in, but know what you're walking into. Everything is a season.
Sure.
Even there's natural seasons in the demand for a product. Mm-hmm. That ebbs and flows. Mm-hmm. We talked about good to great, and one of the things that gave me hope when I was reading that book is that there's no such thing as an overnight success.
That's right.
It's if I'm good, and I believe that was the book that I pulled that from. He said it looks like overnight success, but the average person doesn't see the second mortgage on the house.
Absolutely.
And the years of uncertainty and the times, like the dude that started FedEx, like he was going to the casinos trying to make payroll, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, some seasons, it's not the smartest thing to do, but it's like, there are those moments that and you go a time without taking any income home.
Yes.
Because you believe in something bigger. Yes. And people that are really good at it, they'll turn around and amass, an amazing amount of wealth. And it's the moment when work and ingenuity and the consumer mindset intersect.
Yes. Yes.
And then it takes off like a rocket.
yes.
You know, I sell a product that, truth be known, 8 out of 10 people don't want. They want to want it. They want to want it. But to want it and to want it are two different things.
Absolutely.
And I get it. I didn't understand it when I got into the business. I'm thinking, dude, like who doesn't want to work out? Who doesn't, want to be this or be built, or the Charles Atlas ads in the back of the comic books where he's kicking sand and all that stuff. Who doesn't want that? Well, a lot of people don't want that. And now, working into my fourth quarter, I get it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get it when I
Sure.
first got into the business, But, you have to understand there's ebbs and flows. And then you have to prepare for that. You have to anticipate it. And you have to always be thinking, it's like, if you believe in what you're doing, if you believe in what, this is a good thing. There's only two things I can sell you. One is Jesus. And I'm not saying I'm great at that, but I'm just going to tell you, if you spend enough time with me, eventually you're going to learn, it won't take long, that is the number one seed in my heart, in my life.
Yeah.
And I had to learn to be that. It's like
Yeah.
I didn't, come out of the womb
Yeah.
that way. It's through grace and mercy over time. And just his pure goodness. All of a sudden you get to a place, it's like, dude, like everything else is second, right? The only other thing I can sell is fitness.
Yeah.
Because I know from firsthand account how it can positively impact your life.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people in our community and everywhere, not just domestic, but globally, that are learning how to live in pain because of preventable illness and lifestyle patterns that have led to a compromised quality of life. And life is too short.
One of the things that I truly believe when I'm working with people who are trying to start a business, I always start actually with this question: what is your compelling why? What is your why? And the reason that question is so essential is because there are going to be times when you want to quit. There are going to be times when it's not going well, and you need to be able to look back and go, wait, but what's the thing that's driving me? And sometimes
right.
it's family, sometimes it's finances, sometimes it's a vision for how the body should be working. Because sometimes the passion can dwindle. Sometimes no matter what we are doing for God, it still is going to be surrounded by challenges. We have an enemy out there who is really good at his job. His job is to discourage us, to get us off of our game, to make us quit. One of the things that can make us quit the game and leave early is money, not having it. Talk about, if you can, have you ever encountered in business significant money issues?
For the record, I'm not the best with finances. But I'm going to tell you that with a risk-tolerant business partner, and if you met George, if you knew him, he was bigger than life. When people met him, they either loved him or hated him. But you always knew that was George.
Yes.
Okay. And if he believed it, that he could do something, there wasn't enough logic, ink on a pen, there's not enough books in a library to convince him otherwise. And that was where, sometimes our relationship would get strained a little bit.
Sure.
Because the more we went down this road, I'm like, Joy, I don't know if that's the smartest thing to do. And it depended on how he woke up that morning, how he would respond to it. But God knew I needed that in my life because I was afraid of everything.
That's right.
But George loved to build. The happiest he ever was on a tractor. I'm just telling you. And he felt like the bigger we could make our product, like physically, the more it protected us in the market from competitors. Nobody could come in and do what we do. And we basically build ourselves into prosperity. But it doesn't really work that way. And what happened was we overbuilt the market.
Sure.
And so for years, now he passed, he's been gone about 9 years now, okay? And that was a really hard walk for me, but it's produced a lot of incredible things in my life. But the last 10 years of his life, it was almost every December, about the week to 2 weeks before Christmas, he'd call me into his office and he'd say, I don't know that we're going to see next year. I've already started talking to lawyers, you know. And it was all genuine. It was
Sure.
every year it was
Yes.
genuine, and it was we didn't know where to stop. Now this was a bed that we made,
Sure.
and I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just saying we're talking about, you know, when money becomes an issue. When he passed, our business model was probably in the tightest spot it had ever been. I was getting a lot of counsel that I just needed to run as fast as I could from it. And I don't think that was the right thing to do. Remember now, I've already had a conversation with the Lord several years earlier, you know, that I didn't want to run away from anything. And things had been hard when I was having that conversation with God. And so what that began is basically, you know, he did all the financial side. Probably for a couple of reasons. You know, he didn't want my input, maybe. He didn't want anybody to tell him that we ought not do something because, man, if he got excited, you'd hear that cat fire up, and here we go. He's pushing dirt, you know. But getting my hands on that side and then learning and then having some significant relationships with people in business and within the industry. I've built several relationships with people that have been like incredibly successful. These are people that are published in trade journals in our industry and all these things. People that were groundbreaking in certain niches within our industry, and just got a lot of good counsel and then a lot of favor as time is laid out that has systematically, step by step, helped us to become relevant again in the market. And there's, you know, again, I don't know how much time we have, but there was a whole series of things that I've learned. The most significant, I would say, we have a track on the west end of our property, right? I'm walking that track. I'm walking the track because I don't want to be in my building. Okay, and I'm toiling. I'm broken and I'm torn, and I see all these possibilities, but then I see this giant monster that's just like hemorrhaging, and I don't know how to fix it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I kept thinking, God, if I just had, God, if I just had, God, if I just had. I mean, I'd been walking around this track probably in this quarter mile, so I've probably walked a half mile having that conversation. If only, if only, if only. And as clear as I could say you and I are speaking, I heard him speak. Quit talking about what you don't have. And look what's already in your hand that I've placed there and use it. And so nothing really changed at that moment other than my prayer life. Then instead of, you know, the Lord's Prayer, give us this day our daily bread. We live in a culture, it's not bread that every day, like I can't remember the last time I was threatened with hunger. So, God, the resources that I need to fulfill your will. And then I will literally rewrite the Lord's Prayer in my head when I pray it every day.
Sure.
And that's what it's like, you've got something for me to do. There's something in my heart. There's something I see. If it's from you, then what I need to do that, Lord, help me with that. You know, and it may be money, and it may be creativity. It may be this. It's what do we need? But my prayer at that point, then it's like, God, show me what I already have.
Yes.
Don't let me take any of this for granted because I'm sitting on stuff. We were sitting on, so that our building is 80,000 square feet. Truth be known, a very, very smart friend of mine that's like one of the icons in our industry, he's like, This is the most professional man I've ever met. He's walking through his facility in a 3-piece suit. Now, he's medical. He's on the medical end
Sure.
of it. And he's just walking his countenance. Like my countenance, I walk in, and it depends on which fire's thrown at me the first. Is like where, and I've learned how to control that a little bit. But he was stoic, calm. Hey, Mr. Doug, how are you? I'm great, Susan. How are you? Hey, Mr. Doug. Hello, Bill. How are you? Is everything well today? You know, and I was just like, I want to be like that. I want to be like that. You know. So we're on the phone. He says, how many square feet is your building? And I tell him, I said, 80,000 square feet. And there's this moment of silence. And the most professional man that I've ever met in my life speaks and says, how in the hell is your building 80,000 square feet? I mean, I burst out laughing regardless of how dark the space was I was in at that time, you know, because I had heard him say that. But what at 80,000 square feet meant was 20,000 square feet of rental income. Okay, so we have resources.
Right.
We have things in our hand, and so that then the prayer's not give me more, God. It's God, help me be faithful with what you've given me. Help me look for opportunity within what's already in my hand. I don't want anything more in my life. But what I want is the things that he's entrusted me with, I want to be a better steward of. And that's in every way, shape, and form.
I myself, obviously, I've been in business for about 20 years. But I just remember going to the post office box one morning and receiving an envelope from a very well-known entity. And inside that envelope was something for me. It had my name on it. And I thought, they're sending out birthday cards this year. But in that envelope was a letter that said I owed $179,000. And, you know, 15 years ago, that was a big deal for me to owe someone $100. It's a big deal for me right now to owe someone
15 years ago?
$179,000.
Wow.
But I remember thinking, how am I going to dig myself out of this? I didn't want to escape it. I wanted to deal with it. And I had friends who were on my team that I could blame for it. But God said, you take responsibility for this. And like you know, God just started to show me what is it that I have in my hands that could help me dig myself out of this. And it opened up a whole new world for my business because the creativity of the Father began to rise up in me. Here's
and
source of
out
income.
of desperation.
Sure.
You know, I mean, like it's unfortunate, but it has been desperation that has gotten me to a point that he's like, you ready to listen now? It's like, and you know, you talk about chaos, and I didn't mean to
You're fine,
cut
you're
your
fine.
story short, but and I didn't write this, or I didn't hear it. I mean, I didn't invent this, but there is I've heard more than one person who's been known for, you know, turbulent lifestyles or whatnot, a band in particular that I enjoyed, and one of the in a moment of sobriety, this guy's talking about their history, and they were known for just always fighting, just chaos, and he said, you know, you look back and you see all the storms and all the tragedy and all the self-induced pain and all the conflict and all those things. And you get to this point and you realize, and this guy's not a believer, or maybe he is, I don't know, but he certainly wasn't going that direction. I'm going in that direction. I'm taking, you look at the chaos, the heartache, every tear, who God says he counts, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
And now we're at a place, and you look back, and it is nothing less than a well-crafted novel.
Come on.
And the thing about me being the dreamer, I love an underdog story.
Yes.
I love Rudy, and I hated sports, and I love Rudy. I mean, it's like I wanted to be Chicken Little. I mean, you know, that was me, and I can't tell you how many times I've talked to the Lord and I'm like, God, okay, I know I love an underdog story, but I didn't have to be the
The
underdog.
main character, right?
But people in your circles and people around, they hear these things, and it's just hard to put them. They I don't believe we can always empathize. It's like, what do you know about hardship? But the thing is, if you've been living and breathing long enough, everybody's going to face something.
Come on.
And if it's your fire, it's hot.
Come on.
And it doesn't matter if my toaster didn't work this morning,
That's right.
or I owe somebody $180,000. But what God can do in those moments. And I think the Father is such that even if it's self-induced, which much of my grief
Absolutely.
has been,
Yeah.
Either from bad decisions or even worse, Felicia, no decisions.
Yes.
That was the biggest turning point in my life,
Yeah.
I would say, is learning that no decision is a decision. Compliance with something that you think is not the smartest thing to do.
Come on.
I mean, who are you going to point to?
Come on.
But seeing the grace of God in those moments, and I think he gets a kick out of like, okay, you done dug a deep hole now, but watch this.
That's it.
And if we will get in a place where we surrender, it's not that you have to like just let go of things that were important to you and all these dreams that you had, and you'll never see them again. You surrender these things to him, I believe. And then he says, okay, this was in your heart for a reason.
Yeah.
Now, let me turn this around
That's
so
it.
you can see what this is really supposed to
That's
be.
it. That's it.
And that's what I'm like when you talk about this coming to life, it's all these things that were in me and they've been in me. Let me tell you, some of the stuff that I'm doing now was in me in the best 6, 7 years old.
Absolutely.
But I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And basically he's like, well, let me help you with this.
I think that's the powerful position to be in when we don't have any other avenues, or we just go, it's got to be on you.
Well, sometimes it's easier to get there when there's no other, like you're in the bottom of the well now.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now what you gonna do?
Yeah. One of the things that God spoke to me is you're going to either focus on the loss or the lesson. Mm-hmm. And being in education, he just gave me this analogy about people who take tests. He's like, when you take a test and you fail it, what does a teacher have to do? Well, she comes in and she reteaches me. And if they have a hard head and they don't study and they don't use what they have learned, they fail the test again, don't they? Yes, sir. And what does the teacher have to do? She comes in and she reteaches me. So, Felicia, if you want to get out of this storm, if you want to get out of this crisis, if you want to get your money back, if you want to gain more money, if you want to affect more people, then you're going to have to learn to pass this test. You're going to have to learn to pass it. I often believe that one of the final frontiers that we have to pass or overcome in life is money and how to use it, learning what it's for and what it's not for, and learning how to glorify God with it. The Bible says this, behold, I set before you today life and death, blessing and cursing. Psst, choose life. And I feel like he says that when we're in crisis, I'm setting before you the loss or the lesson. Which one are you going to choose? I hope you'll choose the lesson. If there were one lesson that you've learned about crawling out of a financial crisis, what would you say it was?
Was it Churchill that said, if you find yourself in hell, whatever you do, don't stop?
Don't rest there.
Right. Keep going. I could be. That's all I know to do. I've never been heavily monetarily driven. I love the thought of what freedom is gained.
Yeah.
Of what you can do.
Yeah.
With financial independence. I'm not there yet, but at the end of the day, that's not what moves me.
That's right.
And so my conversation is more about help me be faithful.
That's it.
And, a mountain of debt is not faithful.
Come on.
And I've had to wrestle with that,
Sure.
and learning still how to navigate those spaces. And it gets harder as a single person. It's so easy because, like, my entertainment system was again another black and white television on 2 cinder blocks. I mean, I don't know that I would still be, if I were single today, that I'd still want to live in that state, but I wouldn't need much more than that. You start having children, and then what do? I want my children to have what I didn't have when I was young, and then you start setting them up for failure if you're not careful.
And that is a black hole, Pat. I watch so many people do this, and there is no judgment here. I grew up in extreme poverty, right? Mm-hmm. And so we didn't know how poor we were. I didn't know that I was poor until I filled out my FAFSA to go to college. And I thought, well, which one of these is our category, Mom? And I didn't know we made so little, right? But I hear people say, I want to give my children what I didn't have. And that's noble. But the truth is, if it costs you debt, if it's where you have to go into debt, that is not freedom. And nobody is having fun owing all their money to someone else at the end of the day.
No.
That's a habit, and debt is a habit. It's a habit. We don't come out of debt by introducing more debt to ourselves. We have to decide, I've got to climb out. And it may be hard.
You borrow your way into prosperity, Oh, we've had discussions with that, So to me, it's all about stewardship.
Yeah, it is.
It's about stewardship.
It is.
And I'm still learning.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, I mean, there are some debt responsibilities that we built,
Sure.
And projects that didn't quite pan out.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Doubling the size of our facility at one
Sure.
time. I mean, that accrued a significant, amount of debt. So, but God, I don't know where to go with this. You work and you pay attention and you watch numbers.
That's it.
And what's been the healthiest teacher for me? Because I'm gonna tell you, shortly after I got married, I was praying that God would help me understand better how to actually use money, to be more faithful with money. And what has taught me more than anything about finances is simply having a laundry list of things that have to be done when your resources are just not there. And then the only other equation is time.
That's it.
Figure it out.
That's it.
Does that make sense? And then that's the position I was in. It's
Sure.
like, okay, you are teetering on chapter 11 here.
Come on.
Like, and there's no solution.
Yes.
Now figure it out.
That's it.
And basically, because you never learn when you're on top. Okay? The lessons come in the challenge. And, when I first started running the health club, now 86, I was, working and cleaning. Actually, George hated me. He didn't hate me. He didn't like me. And so I was always the kid in the back. The cool kids got to work out front. I was the one that was doing the painting and whatnot, but I showed up every day.
That's it.
And it was my grit and my pursuit of excellence that elevated
right.
me to that place. But there was a season where I thought I was the smartest club operator. And I mean, I'm in my 20s. And on paper, the return on the facility I was managing, at the time we had 2, and then soon after that 3. But at the time, the return per dollar it challenged most any club in the region. According to the accountants that we're working with. I didn't know that. They're just telling me this. All I'm like, it's like, my eyes, I'm like, whoa, it costs that much to operate every day. I'm like, dude, all that money came in, but this is all we kept?
Yes.
But that's the reality of business.
That's it.
Okay, but you do that over time, and that accrues into something.
That's right.
Right? Either you can expand or develop the next product, write the next book, new brick and mortar, whatever. I thought I had it all figured out. And then certain things happened within our market in the industry to where I saw a club that I was operating with 2,000 members in the model was so efficient. The building was, it was so inexpensive to operate that facility. Now, we did a good job. The facility was always clean, kept the equipment up. I mean, we were showing up. Our bedrock is all about relationship, team. We had the right people. But we went from 2,000 members to maybe 500 in 3 months. Changed, and I'm thinking everything I did was producing all of this. And then due to circumstances completely outside of my control, we knew there was another entity coming into the market. We knew these things were happening. I was preparing for that the best I knew how. Nothing can prepare you for things of that. But that's just one of those things. And that's when I've learned. It's like I wasn't learning anything. I just thought that, well, I do this, and here it is. Well, no, some of that's just you were in a season.
That's it.
And there are seasons where you can harvest, and there are seasons you're going to break that ground up.
That is one of the things that I would also recommend to business owners is about understanding seasons, that it's not going to always be fat times. You're going to run into some lean times. And what normally happens with business owners, especially new business owners, they make the mistake of getting too big too fast. They don't believe in starting where they are. They start a business and they hire 10 people immediately.
Yeah.
And they get all this overhead and they can't succeed because they're having to pay out more than they're making. And I would recommend to anyone, start where you are, know your numbers. And for 7, 8 years, 10 years, Triumph Educational Consulting was Felicia Johnson. That was it, because I knew where I was. I needed to build and amass before I put anyone else into the equation. So some people make the mistake of building too fast. I want to ask you one last question. When we feel stuck or we've had a great loss, it can make us fearful of keeping going. What is the one thing that you would tell a business owner out there right now who feels stuck and they just want to quit because it just seems overwhelming? The need of what they what they need seems very overwhelming in the moment.
I don't think anybody needs to be in a business if they don't have passion for what it is they're doing at some level. And so my counsel would be, do you still believe in what you're doing? And if the answer to that is yes, then figure it out. Figure it out. And it may look entirely different. It might be you have a staff of 15 people and you need to go down to, a 2-man operation that's profitable and it still fulfills your passion. And every business, you mentioned this earlier, is to solve a problem.
Yeah.
Every business. Louis Vuitton, they're solving a problem for somebody.
Yes, they are.
A fashion problem. It's like, I need that new purse, but I feel complete with that new purse, whatever. And then you have someone who, is a cardiologist solving a problem. And someone like me who's trying to keep you away from the cardiologist, solving a problem. If you believe in what you're doing and you're solving a problem, then figure it out.
I love that, Patrick. You said, if we're not passionate about what we're doing, we don't need to do it. So many times business owners go into business just to make money, but we literally need to be passionate about what we're doing, because that is the abundant life.
Right.
The abundant life is not me just making money. It's me living a life that I don't want to escape from, right? And so you mentioned, if I have this passion, then I should figure it out. Here's what the Bible says. If you don't know what to do, ask God. His scripture says this: if any man lacks wisdom, ask God, and he will give it to you. He will lavish it on you if you'll just ask him. Now, some of that wisdom comes from hardship. We find the greatest wisdom sometimes when we've been in the greatest storm. But God will show us how to reinvent ourselves and reinvent our business.
Oh, yeah.
He'll show us those things. Would you look into this camera?
That camera.
And would you say a prayer for that business owner who's in a hard spot right now?
Yeah.
They have passion, but they just don't know how to get out. Would you say a prayer for them?
Yeah. And Father God, we thank you for today, Lord. We thank you how you orchestrate our steps, God, and you bring lives together and you bring conversations together. And you do all these things so that the whole earth can be filled with your glory and the fullness and awareness that you are God. And it's your grace and mercy that you lavish upon us that goes beyond description, and we so often take it for granted. And we sometimes find ourselves in a place where there's need, and then we realize how much we took for granted. But Father, we know you're the ultimate source of all good things. And I pray for any individual, every individual that's struggling at this time, and I'm praying for those that are flourishing. For those that flourish, God, help us to understand how to be more faithful with what you've given us, how to be better stewards, how to pour out what we are doing for your kingdom. And for those that are struggling, I pray for peace that goes beyond understanding. I pray for direction and wisdom and discernment that you assure us you'll grant if we'll just ask you. I pray that you help us to get into a place where we sit still long enough to hear from you and get your direction so we know the steps. I pray for things in our lives that we have absolutely no control over to just begin to happen, which provides clarity of what the next step is. And at all costs, help us not to lose hope. Hope does not disappoint. But there is a brighter tomorrow, and we don't have to define it on a P&L sheet. We don't have to define it by what our return is on a certain venture, but we define it by what have we done for the kingdom. If we seek first the kingdom of the Lord, all these other things that we worry about will be added. And God, we trust you with these things. So I pray for direction and peace and guidance and counsel, and help every one of us know that we are not alone in this. And we have an opportunity to connect with the Father of all creation. And we also have a responsibility to be faithful with all of the goodness that you pour upon us, God. It's in your name, Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Thank you so much for joining us on The Stories I'll Tell. We'll see you next time. And until then, keep your passion. Go to God for wisdom. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. All these things that you need will be added to you. We'll see you next time. Thank you.